is James here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting May the 25th, 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this week's video reading. I am so happy to have you here. This week, we kick off with Memorial Day here in the United States. So I want to give a shout out to all of you who have served our country in the past and those of you who are serving our country in the present. So typically on Memorial Day, we focus on veterans, those who have served and are still here with us on this side of the veil, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice serving their country and have given their lives to do so. So we also want to acknowledge those who are in spirit, right? So first and foremost, thank you to all the veterans out there. Now, we also want to acknowledge, or at least I want to, I'm speaking for you, but I'm going to speak for myself instead. I want to acknowledge those who are serving our country with the pandemic experience that we are all being affected and impacted by. So I'm talking about the doctors, the nurses, all the hospital workers, those who are working in essential businesses, right? So those who are working in grocery stores, having been a person who's done that for a number of years myself, giving a special shout out to the grocery store workers, to the postal workers, to those individuals who are helping things continue to run to the best of their ability, right? So thank you to one and all who are serving in that regard. So I just wanted to give that personal shout out. Now I'm going to give another shout out. So as we shift gears more towards the reading, I am continuing to honor requests that are being made to work with specific decks or specific deck systems. This week, once again, someone has asked me to work with Kipper, so that will be the system on the table this week. Specifically, I was asked to work with the Fin de Siècle Kipper cards by Ciro Marchetti. The deck that I have was from his self-published edition, so when the cards are on the table, you'll notice that the backs have my name on them. I had them monogrammed, right? So I'm working with the first edition. That is no longer in publication or being offered to the public. These days, you can get the Fin de Siècle cards through any retailer, because it is now mass-produced by US Game Systems Incorporated. So I will leave that information in the description box below. So this request came from Kelly, so I want to give her a shout out. So thank you, Kelly, for making the request. And I hope you find the reading that's coming interesting, helpful, and informative since you asked to work with this deck specifically. So again, I'm working with the Fin de Siècle Kipper cards, and so now that I've set things up, let's get to the table and see what this particular deck has to say about the week ahead. And here we are with the cards on the table, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the deck. And as I'm shuffling, I'm focusing on my intention that I usually offer for these weekly general readings, and that is for the information, for the insight, for the guidance and advice that will be most helpful and beneficial to come through the cards regarding the experiences of the upcoming week. Feeling one more time will be good. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan the cards out. And I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention as I'm continuing to work with lines of 5s. A lot of viewers find them to be very interesting to work with. Alright, so I have the 5 cards selected. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and I'm going to move that to one side. And now I can clearly see I have 5 cards, so I'm just going to rearrange them in a line in the order that they were selected. So I've said this many times in this space before, but if you're new, I'll say it again. When I work with Kipper and I read a line of 5, I tend to read the cards from left to right because Kipper to me is an unfolding story. And because the cards have certain categories and certain directional cues, they kind of dictate which direction the story will move into or move toward. So I prefer to read them from left to right rather than pulling the middle card first, as I do with Lenormand and some other systems that I work with. Okay, so with that in mind, starting with the card on the far left, opening the storyline up for the week, we have Pathway. Okay, so for me, Pathway is a card that talks about a long journey, right? This is about a long road ahead. Now, opening the line up, it could suggest that whatever the storyline is moving towards or the direction it's going to take is that either one or two things with this. Either this is talking about coming a long way, or that there's still some ways to go, right? So that's how I look at this. This card usually talks about, something that's been a long time coming, or something that will take a long time to accomplish. With that in mind, this card is known as 1 year's patience. So it could just be saying, as this journey progresses, whatever it might be, patience is really going to be important. It's going to be needed. It's going to be vital going forward, right? So it would suggest that if this is a collective experience, we're all being required, based on this card, to have some kind of patience. We have to be patient with the process, right? If it's a personal experience, again, patience is going to be required. It's about maybe patience for things as they unfold, but also being patient with yourself as you're going along, right? I will say this in this regard, being patient with yourself. If you are feeling like you're looking at your life and you're looking at it in the lens of, how far you've come, and maybe you're looking at it with the idea that you haven't come far enough, and you're looking at life from how much more you have to do or how much further you have to go, and I'm talking about that in the metaphorical sense, that may be where the patience is needed, right? Just be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and maybe consider giving a reframe. Rather than looking at maybe how far you think you still have to go, maybe take a look back and give it another view about the progress that you've made, right? You've made progress. And I'm of the mind that some progress is better than no progress. And so maybe that may be what you might want to consider for the week ahead. It may help you go forward rather than maybe continue to look back or maybe keep yourself stuck in the present moment and not take a step further, right? So again, pathway for me, generally speaking, can talk about a long journey. So I'm seeing it as, coming a long way, or that we are choosing to look at the path ahead and we're seeing how much further we still have to go. Right? So that's pathway. So now let's take a look at the card next to it. And here we have unexpected income. Okay. So unexpected income for me is a card that can talk about surprises, and it can talk about improvement, right? So here, this makes perfect sense with what I've been saying for people who may be looking at the road ahead and still feeling like they have a long ways to go. Maybe this with unexpected income is reinforcing that idea about taking a look at the progress that you've made, right? But this is being on the road to improvement, right? So there's something that we are focusing on improving, right? Now, unexpected income can also represent financial transactions. If you look at the image, and you can clearly see that one hand is dropping a coin into another hand, right? So for me, that represents financial transactions. Here's the thing with this card. It's usually a financial transaction that you didn't work for, right? Because the work card in this deck, which is work occupation, talks about, the idea about earning money through work. But this card, when it turns up, usually represents the idea that you didn't necessarily have to work for it in order to receive it, which is the unexpected, right? It's sudden, it's unexpected, it's something that we weren't anticipating or looking for, but it's coming to our hands anyway. Now, the interesting thing with the Fin de Siècle Kipper deck is that in the background of the image, and I'll hold it a little closer to the camera, in the background is the house card, right? And so there's a nod to something regarding financial transactions regarding the home. So this could be something having to do with maybe the exterior of a house, since the outside of the house is in the background, or it could be something having to do with household finances, household accounts, things of that nature, right? And so maybe with that in mind, if somebody's maybe wanting to put money down for a house, maybe saving money for that, they may be looking at it in terms of how much further they have to go in terms of creating the amount needed for that transaction, right? It could also be that maybe for some time somebody has been struggling with, paying their household accounts, their personal financial accounts, things of that nature, money around the house, that kind of thing. And there may be some improvement with that this week, right? They may have been struggling for some time, but there may be this week going forward some surprise or some improvement in that area. Again, unexpected income for me represents some kind of transaction, financially speaking, that is unexpected. We didn't anticipate it and we didn't see it coming. But we are open to receiving it nonetheless, right? Okay, so that is unexpected income. So now let's take a look at the card in the middle of the line this week. And here we have Lovers. Okay, so Lovers is a card that can talk about relationships, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the romantic variety, right? Of course, with the word lovers, that would be the implication here. But for me, this card can also talk about platonic relationships, right? So there's something about relationships being at the center here. So if I go with unexpected income being about surprise, right? If it's not about income, it may be about a surprise or some sort of improvement. As the focus card, or at the heart of the story this week, this card could be talking about improving a relationship, right? And with the pathway card still opening the line up, could be talking about, the progress being made in a relationship. This could be one that's come a long way, right? We go with that, or that there is some improvement in a relationship that we still need to accomplish going forward, right? So there's that. At the center, if that resonates with people, at the center of the Lovers card, this card is usually about faith and trust. So it could be twofold. Number one would be faith and trust in the other party in that relationship, right? And I'm being told to come back to this. If this is the case, then remember the House card can represent also things that are close to home, meaning things that are personal, right? So I would see this as the value, understanding the value of the relationship between the two parties, right? If we go with the hands representing one party and then the other party, then it's about the exchange of value in a relationship. So this card is asking us, or the cards I should say, asking us to consider if we're in a relationship challenge this week, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, an association, whatever the case may be. Maybe we have to ask ourselves, what's the value of the relationship to me, right? Do I value the other party? Does the other party really value me? This may be the week where we get to explore that, right? Especially those long-term relationships. Pathway makes me think of something that's been, either a long time coming or a long time established, going down the road, that kind of thing. It makes me think of something long-term, right? So it's about putting the energy or the focus on maybe faith and trust issues. So like I said, faith and trust in the other party, but also maybe faith and trust in ourselves, right? Because one of the meanings that I have for the Lovers card personally is about our intuition. So this could be about, just trusting your gut. You may not like the word intuition. Intuition may be too woo-woo for you. So it could be like, just trusting your hunches, trusting your gut, trusting your instincts, whatever word you want to put in a place of intuition is all the same to me. It's all about semantics, really, right? But it could just be about trusting yourself and trusting the other person. But really, if you trust yourself enough, you'll know whether or not to trust the other person, right? Because really, it really comes back to you, right? Trusting your own inner wisdom, trusting your own guidance, trusting your own judgment, things like that. Now, in traditional Kipper cartomancy, this card is known as success in love, right? So if it's not about a romantic relationship or a relationship generally speaking, then it could be, what are we willing to do to make some situation successful, right? This card would imply, putting energy into, and I'm going back to this card, putting energy into a situation so we can have a successful outcome, right? And it could be, if I bring it back to the relationship aspect, it could be, putting energy, coins or money, and money is energy, right? Spiritually speaking, putting energy into a relationship so we can see it be successful, right? Or become successful, right? And success would be a relative word. So you have to think about, like, what does success mean to me, right? All right, so now moving on. And here we have family room. Oh, I love this. Okay, so I talked about the house, right, being in the background on the unexpected income card. So now we have family room. Family room would suggest, if we go with it following lovers, family room is all about intimacy. For me, it's about having personal space. It's about privacy, things like that. So this would be a relationship, possibly speaking, and I'm going with the word family room, that may involve family, right? Or it could be a very close, personal, intimate relationship. It could be that maybe the surprise or the improvement would be regarding intimacy, right? Forming a more intimate bond or connection with the other party. And again, this does not necessarily have to imply romance. It could suggest, just creating the space for a closer, more emotional, deeper connection with another party, right? And it could be like, maybe if you want that in your life, would you be willing to make the space for it, right? It could be like, for some people may want their personal space. That could be an issue too. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I'm a person who loves my privacy, you know? And so in a relationship, if I were in one, the other party would have to be able to respect the idea that at times I'm just going to need my own space, right? So I'm seeing that as a possibility. And I know if I'm like that, I'm not the only one who's going to be like that in the entire planet, right? So other people may be feeling like there's some sort of need or value in having space, right? Now, it could be that with the collective experience that we're all having with the coronavirus, and I know some of us were slowly emerging from, our homes, getting back out into the world, so to speak, and that's been maybe some time coming, pathway, right? Here, it could be that there may be some challenge, or that may help improve a close personal relationship, right? It could be like, people who have been sharing close personal space and quarters, sometimes the longer we're around people, the more we get, the polite word that's coming to me is unnerved, right? So it could just be a matter of, like, the close proximity. People have been getting on our nerves, right? And so, maybe we're welcoming the bonus, quote unquote, of getting beyond the space, right? So I'm seeing it two ways. Number one, it could be a request. The cards are requesting, especially if you want to improve a specific relationship. Doesn't matter the specifics or the dynamic. If you want to improve a relationship, it may require some form of intimacy, right? It makes me feel like maybe getting up close and personal. And that's metaphorically, right? That would help if you're sharing living space to some degree, right? Because as I said that, I'm being aware that we're still practicing to some degree social distancing, right? When we're out in public. So you can't get up and close and personal in the literal sense, maybe, right? But it could just be a matter of, having some sort of intimate bond, connection, a way to relate with the other party this week, right? So there's that. And it could also be something that could improve a relationship is that giving each other space. So that's what I'm seeing with family room. Okay, so rounding out the line this week, we have, yeah. Okay, so we have high honors. Okay, so I will say this. High honors, first and foremost, can be a card of recognition. And with that in mind, I usually see it as career and career advancement. But I'm going to see it with this week. It's making me feel it's more about, if we go with the idea that the card in the middle of the line being lovers and talks about relationships, and the idea here about forming intimate bonds or connections, greater sense of intimacy and privacy, maybe regarding certain relationships. This card for me represents, honor and recognition in that regard. Like our needs, unexpected income, what we value, unexpected income, is being honored. It's being recognized, right? There is some sort of achievement taking place, which is nice because remember, this is not just the lover's card, but it's called success in love. So here we have success, putting energy into a successful outcome. And then as a result, it gets some kind of achievement. There's something accomplished here, right? Because the image here is a 21 gun salute, right? So with that in mind, getting your needs honored, getting your needs recognized, those kinds of things. But order of the cards, family room coming first, it may require some form of intimacy, right? And intimacy is an interesting word. Intimacy, if you break it down, can be into me, see. So it could just be a request in our relationships to be seen, right? To be seen more closely, right? And that goes two ways, right? If that is a request that you are expressing toward another person this week, I do just like I did last week with tarot. Turn it back on yourself. If you're wanting to be seen, are you seeing the other people around you? Right? And so this could just be the week where we are switching gears, right? And maybe not taking a look at what's going on in the larger collective sphere, but maybe taking a more personal take around what's going on in our lives with the relationships that are close to home. And so, with that, I will end this week's Oracle Outlook here. I'm James Tim Mitchell, and as I wrap up, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have the best day possible, and I'm hoping that you have the best week possible. Take care.